The Fete of Death, Trott, Book 1, Chapter 5. You did have a set to with Samantha Inkler over Adam Pinder's body being moved, didn't you? And she knocked your coffee all over you. For some people that's enough to kill someone over, said the ever-smirking Mavis Poole, who'd heard every word Tara had said. I'm not even from this village. I don't have a motive. Whilst we're at it, why did you enter a blackcurrant pie when you knew one of the judges was allergic to blackcurrants? Asked Tara, as she pointed her finger at the unflinching Mavis Poole. I forgot she had an allergy, she shrugged. Where's your pie? It's there, somewhere. Where? I can't see any blackcurrant pies in this tent. Maybe the same person who stole their muffins ran off with my pie too. I don't blame them. After all, Samantha Inkler was raving about how good it was. Yes, just before she died of poisoning. And what was it you said about her getting her just desserts? It was a figure of speech. We'll let the police decide on that, shall we? There's no evidence, it's all pie in the sky. There's always evidence. Mavis Poole pouted, left the tent and didn't look back. Nancy Parker pushed her way through the exodus of drenched villagers and found Tara and the twins at the entrance to the cake tent. What's going on? There's first aiders helping people up off the floor and they're saying the bridge is closed until further notice. No one can get in or out of Tarndale. What? Why? What's wrong with the bridge? Asked Tara. The river's burst its banks in the flash flood. The rain's torrential out there. I didn't need to bother drying off after swimming. I should have stayed in my swimming costume. That's Simon Salters lunging at people up near your car, screaming about how everyone's churning his field up. Everyone's leaving in a hurry, and I suggest we do too, she said, wiping her face with the towel out of her rucksack. We've had a terrible morning, as it happens, and I've still not managed to have any coffee yet, although it's not through want of trying, she said, looking over at the twins. Well, if you want a coffee, you'd best hurry up because the catering van's packing up. Tara's eyes grew wide in panic. She ran, slipping and sliding as she went. Sure enough, the van was skidding its determined way off the rapidly flooding field, chased by Simon Salter, who was shaking his large fist at it. No, yelped Tara, who felt tears prick her eyes, helplessly watching it leave. Nancy and the twins stood alongside Tara as the rain plastered their hair down and the wind cut through to their bones. Nancy's expression changed. She ran back to the cake tent, peeked inside, then ran back to them. Is that a dead body in the cake tent? She asked, in disbelief. Yes, that was one of the judges, said Molly. Nancy frowned. How come she's dead? Someone killed her, poisoned her if you must know. I've not got a clue who, but I wouldn't put it past that Mavis Poole, said Tara. A murder, and I missed it? I wouldn't have gone swimming if I'd have known, she groaned. That wasn't the only murder. We've had a surprising morning by all accounts, said Tara, squeezing her temples. Who else has been murdered? The singer. Strangled by persons unknown, said Sally. Is that what that noise was? Asked Nancy. No, that was him singing. He'd stopped singing, thankfully, but someone still killed him. Using his own microphone, said Tara. That's a novel murder weapon. Well, we can't stay here. Apparently this field floods a lot because the river needs dredging. I heard someone say the bridge might collapse altogether this time. It'd be just our luck if we got stranded in this awful place, wouldn't it? Said Nancy. We are stranded. Where can we go? The car? The car's not going anywhere, is it? Oh no. Oh no, they're even taking the loos away. Oh, we can't be far from a loo, not at our age, said Molly, suddenly feeling she desperately needed a loo, just because there wasn't one. The police haven't spoken to us yet, said Tara, who couldn't remember a time when she felt as wet as she was right then. I'll ring Dennis. He'll know what to do, said Nancy. Nancy Parker's husband, Dennis, was a police detective, Nethercott Division. Nancy went away from them and spoke to her husband on her mobile, shielding it from the rain under her rucksack she'd put on her head. He said the police in Tarndale will want everyone off the field, including us. We're not allowed inside the caravan or cake tent. till forensics had been. It looks like everyone's already started to go home. They'll get everyone's statements later about what they might have seen or heard. It's unsafe trying to interview people on the field right now, especially if the bridge is likely to collapse. We can't go home, said Tara, her teeth chattering. I know, we've got to book into a bed and breakfast for the night. I saw one back there near the pub, said Nancy. We don't have enough money on us for a bed and breakfast. We only bought £30 between us, cried Sally, tugging at her soggy cardigan pockets. I brought £20, so that's 50. How much did you bring, Tara? Asked Nancy. Enough. Listen, we can't go to a bed and breakfast looking like this. Did you happen to see any clothes shops on your travels? Luckily, Tarndale has a decent number of shops. They've got almost every kind of shop you can think of. The assistants are a sullen lot, but then the whole village is, if you ask me. Right, lead on. We'll get ourselves clean clothes, shoes, nightwear. Nancy, you book us 2 rooms when we pass the bed and breakfast. My treat. We'll pay you back every penny when we get back home, said Molly, shivering. You don't need to pay me back, said Tara generously. They followed Nancy through the mire of mud, holding on to the person in front. They stuck to the edge of the field, thinking it would be safer, but the mud was like walking across an ice rink in glass slippers. Tara heard the twins whispering about how they'd heard Tara had a rich relative who died and left her a fortune. That was exactly what she'd told Nancy, because, as Nancy was Nethercott's queen of gossip, she knew it would reach the ears of everyone she wanted it to. It was on days like this when she was glad she had money. Sometimes money could dig you out of a hole your heels had put you into. Right then, she didn't care how much a decent cup of coffee would cost her. She understood the famous line, "My kingdom for a horse now." They slid and cursed under their breath most of the way, and Sally fell on her knees into a sloppy puddle right at the end of the field. The sight of the 4 of them, covered in rich lathery mud and soaking wet in completely unsuitable footwear and no coats, was a pitiful one. A line of drenched policemen was stood at the edge of the field, taking everyone's details and first accounts as they left the field, so they could take more detailed statements later on. Once the group had given their details and told them what they had seen, they set off for the shops. They squelched into the first shop they came to, with raindrops dripping off their noses and puddles forming at their feet. "Clothes," gasped Tara. "Anything you've got, as long as they're dry." The sales assistant wrinkled her nose and shooed them onto the welcome mat. "Stay there. I'll bring the clothes to you. Don't touch anything." She held up various items of clothing which they either nodded or shook their heads at. Once they'd chosen a complete outfit each, Tara paid for it using one of her cards. Next, they found a shoe shop. They were heading towards a coffee shop, much to Tara's delight, when she realised they didn't yet have a room booked. "Nancy, where's that bed and breakfast you mentioned?" "There, next door to the pub. Go and order your coffees and I'll book us in, then I'll come and join you." She jogged off in the irritating way she always did. Nancy never walked anywhere. She always jogged or skipped. The coffee shop owner asked them to leave the moment they walked through the door. But Tara was having none of it. All day she'd been thwarted each time she tried to get a cup of her beloved coffee. The lack of caffeine in her system made her a formidable force, and without Nancy there to calm her down, the coffee shop owner got the full brunt of a Tara Trott tantrum. Tara plonked her dripping, muddy self into one of the coffee shop's leather chairs. The twins, sensing mischief was in the air, joined her, giggling like schoolgirls. "Now look, we've had a terrible morning in your bloody village. We've been shouted at, had people murdered in front of us, had hundreds of people collapse all around us, been half drowned in a torrential downpour, and my bloody car's stuck in the mud in some field, and now the bridge is closed, so we can't go anywhere tonight, and I've had no coffee or anything to eat all day, so don't act brave and think you'll be able to get me out of this chair using words alone. It'll take brute force, believe me. We'll go once we've had something to eat and as much coffee as I can stomach. I'll even pay for the chairs to be cleaned if it makes you feel better. Get me a cup of coffee, a latte, the biggest you've got, and don't bring it in a flimsy glass either, thundered Tara, in a voice that let everybody within a 2-mile radius know she meant business. The manageress scurried off to make the coffee, but she kept peering over at Tara, wondering if she should let them be or ring the police. Then again, she thought, she might be able to find out more about what had happened at the fete if this stayed. She carried over a huge latte in a cup that looked more like a soup bowl than a coffee cup. Tara's eyes lit up as she put her lips to the frothy topped coffee. "Can we have a pot of tea, please?" asked the twins, admiring Tara for standing up to the manageress like that. They knew the ladies at the knitting circle would relish every detail of Tara's speech, and they planned to recite it with gusto over tea and biscuits on Tuesday. She came back with a tray of cups and a large teapot. She placed it carefully on the table, so she didn't get any of the still dripping mud on herself. "And coffee. I'll have another one of these extra large lattes and a ham and cheese toastie." "Oh yes, toasties will be lovely," said Molly, feeling much happier despite her bedraggled appearance. "Did you say someone's been murdered at the fete?" "The fete? On Buttercup Meadow, was it?" "Yes, that's the one. 2 people were murdered. Adam Pinder, the singer, and Samantha Inkler, one of the cake competition judges," said Tara, taking a final sip of her first coffee. "That's awful. Do they know who did it?" she asked, putting her hand to her chest. "Not yet. It's been difficult for the police to conduct their investigation into the location of the bodies where they are, and the bad weather. The field's a no-go zone at the moment," said Tara, feeling much calmer. "No one round here liked Samantha Inkler much, that's for sure. She was always pushing people around and walking round like she owned the place, in her heels and red lipstick. My daughter's no fan of hers. She keeps her horses on that field. Samantha Inkler was doing her level best to get it built on. We were talking to 2 girls who said their horses are kept on that field along with Simon Salter's horses," said Sally, cupping her hands round her cup to warm herself up. "Cheryl Trellon and Annabelle Thompson?" "Annabelle's my daughter. I'll just go and get your toasties, ladies," said the manageress, a lot happier she'd let them stay now. She would have been one of the last in the village to know about the murders otherwise. Josh Matthews, her new assistant, was cleaning the coffee machine. He eyed Tara up with his dancing hazel eyes. This could be one to have some fun with, he thought. The twins were far too old for him, but the black-haired one, she might just fit the bill. "Tara," said Nancy, as she burst into the coffee shop, a bundle of energy as always. Josh Matthews looked up. The new arrival was too young, too full of beans, too much of a handful. He was looking for someone over 40, easy to flatter. Tara ticked all his boxes. "I've got us 2 rooms. I gave them the £50 as a deposit. We have to pay the balance when we get there. She's lovely, the owner, but then she doesn't come from here. She's only been in Tarndale for about 6 months. Go and order something for yourself. We're having toasties." Josh Matthews brought their toasties and Tara's large bowl of coffee over. "So," he said, raking his floppy brown fringe with his fingers. "Tara, is it? Sounds like you've had a bit of an experience. 2 murders in one morning, eh? I'd like to be able to reassure you that that kind of thing never happens in Tarndale, but it does. A lot. Although, not everyone gets murdered. Some just go missing." "That explains why the people there were nonplussed about it all then," said Tara. "Are you day trippers?" he asked, fishing for information. "We should have been, but fate's turned it into an overnight stay," said Molly, tucking into her toastie with relish. "I see. Where are you staying?" he asked, smiling seductively at Tara, who blushed, in spite of her face being covered in rapidly drying mud, which cracked as she smiled back at him. "At the bed and breakfast up the road, the one next to the pub," she said, unable to look at him. Instead, she twiddled nervously with her cup. "Dana Felshar's," said Nancy helpfully. "Not far from here then. I hope you'll pop back in and see us before you leave." "Oh, she will do. She's obsessed with coffee. We've heard nothing else all day," sniggered Sally. "I look forward to it." Will you ladies be going to the pub next door to your bed and breakfast tonight by any chance? The Fox? It's just... I'll be there. If I see you, I'll buy you a drink, Tara. I wouldn't want you to leave Tarndale with only bad memories, he said, in a silky smooth voice, which made Nancy's skin crawl, but which made Tara feel like she was walking on air. I should imagine we will be doing, spluttered Tara, missing her mouth with the enormous coffee cup and adding yet another layer of coffee stain to her shirt. My daughter entered that cake contest, I'm sure, said the manageress. I dropped her cake off this morning. Yes, she did. It was one of the pies that poisoned Samantha Inkler, though, not a cake, said Molly. Poisoned? Her jaw dropped. But the other judge was Linda Phelps. She's not. She didn't eat the poison pie, it was blackcurrant, said Tara, sprinkling brown sugar onto the frothy top of her latte. Who on earth would bake a blackcurrant pie when they knew full well Linda's allergic to them? I don't know, because I'm not from this village. But it was evidently someone who is from this village, someone who knew Linda Phelps wouldn't eat the pie, but Samantha Inkler would. It was premeditated murder, if you ask me, said Tara, recovering her composure by ignoring the fresh coffee stain. A blackcurrant pie, eh? What will they think of next? Asked Josh Matthews. It's not really a shock when you think about what happened the last time they had a village fete here. Yes, but that was an accident though, said Josh Matthews. I think that last fete is what gave them the idea. I also think that the mass hysteria was caused by the villagers knowing about the last poisoning incident on that field everyone already believes is jinxed. After seeing Samantha Inkler drop dead in the cake tent, hearing me say it was a poisoning, and then Linda Phelps and Cheryl Trellin collapsing, their imaginations went into overdrive, said Tara, adding yet another sachet of sugar. Mass hysteria? Asked the manageress. I wish I'd have been there. I could have picked you up off the ground and carried you to safety in my strong arms, said Josh Matthews, looking directly at Tara. We weren't affected, snorted Molly, not falling for his smooth talk. It's a common problem. It only takes one person to believe they've been poisoned, then everyone starts having physical symptoms, said Tara, smiling dreamily at Josh Matthews. So, the mud, you all got trampled in the panic then? She asked, nodding at the mud-caked legs and torn clothes. How awful for you all, said Josh Matthews, smirking. No, we got covered in mud when my car got stuck in the field, and again during our escape from the field back to civilization in the storm, said Tara. Oh dear, you'll be right as rain when you get cleaned up. Annabelle and Cheryl will be pleased about Samantha Inkler being taken out the picture though, as terrible as that sounds. They won't need to sell their horses now if the council don't end up selling the field. They've been heartbroken over it all. What on earth is that lot you've got? Asked Tara, amazed at Nancy's overfilled tray. It buckled under a multitude of sandwiches, cakes, biscuits and a large coffee. Just needs paying for, grinned Nancy. Tara reached for her purse and handed her a £20 note. Josh Matthews' eyebrows raised. He'd chosen well. Tara was obviously the one with money. Annabelle Thompson walked into the coffee shop, streaked with mud. She looked tired and dazed. Annabelle, are you okay? Her mum asked. No. A couple of people died today, Mum, and one of the people who went crazy, thinking he'd been poisoned, died of a heart attack. Mr. Simmons. I know he had a weak heart, but I didn't expect him to die because of a lie, she said, shaking. A lie? Asked Nancy. Everyone flipping out was a lie. He believed it, and it killed him. Cheryl's still off her head because of it. She's stamping on imaginary rats and throwing in the odd karate chop for good measure. I think it's unhinged her, she said, frowning. I think you'll find it was something she ate that didn't agree with her. She's not been poisoned, but let's just say the muffins have had a rather startling effect on her system. She'll be fine when she sleeps it off, said Nancy. I know you were fond of Mr. Simmons. It's a shame, that is. He was a lovely man, and we don't have many nice people in Tarndale, as I'm sure you ladies would have noticed. And Adam Pinder too. You have had a rotten day, haven't you? Asked her mother. Annabel burst into tears and ran upstairs into their living quarters. I think everyone's found today tough, said Sally. Simon Salter's come off best in all this, I reckon. He only pays £25 a year rent for that field. He can't afford to keep all his horses if he has to go somewhere else. That's why he's so opposed to losing his field, said the manageress. The council aren't going to drop a multi-million-pound property development just because Samantha Inkler's dead, surely? Asked Molly, taking another bite of her tasty toasty. It was only Samantha Inkler pushing for it. No one else wanted it put through. It's Greenbelt, well, it's supposed to be, and most folk round here will tell you it's jinxed. That field's bad news for all who step on the place. No one in the village would have bought one of those houses, that's for sure. They're a superstitious lot here in Tarndale. They think the houses would be haunted or possessed by witches if they ever did get built. I can believe that, said Tara, who found she was starting to become superstitious herself. No one wants any more houses round here, especially those whose houses face that field. If you've got a view like that, the prospect of 100 houses on your doorstep isn't a nice one, is it? Mavis Poole's one of them who would be affected. It's such a shame. Mavis Poole? The librarian, she said. That's interesting. Which house is hers? Oh, the white one, number 6, she said. I think we'll pay her a visit, said Tara. Why is that? He asked, tilting his head to one side. Oh, I want to swap notes on pie baking, seeing as the judges preferred her pie to mine, lied Tara. After they'd eaten and Tara was satisfied she'd restocked her dangerously depleted caffeine levels to a more normal level, they gathered up their bags of shopping and set off to the bed and breakfast. Before they left, Josh had taken Tara's hand and lightly caressed it, much to the embarrassment of the others and the delight of Tara Trott. The wind was still strong outside, but the heavy pelting rain had faded to a light drizzle, which somehow managed to wet them more. Once they'd settled into the bed and breakfast, had showers and pulled on their cosy new pyjamas and slippers, they met in Tara's room to discuss the case. Tara reached for a pen and paper. She always liked to have a notepad and pen lying around because she loved writing lists. It wasn't the actual writing of the list she enjoyed. It was the crossing off you could do once you'd made a list. It made you feel like you were getting somewhere. Right, suspects. She wrote it as a heading, underlining it several times. Anyone and everyone, said Sally, putting everyone's thoughts into words. I'm sure we can narrow it down a bit if we put our heads together, said Nancy, hoping she was right. But as she hadn't been there for either murder, she was in the dark when it came to discussing potential suspects. All right, what do we know about Samantha Inkler's murder so far then? At the moment, the murder weapon, as in the pie, is missing. There's no proof it was the blackcurrant pie that had poison in it, especially if there's no pie. But it must have been, because that was the only pie Linda Phelps didn't eat, and Samantha Inkler ate lots of it, said Molly. Tara hastily scribbled more notes. I don't think the pie would be missing if it wasn't the culprit. I'm sure the autopsy will find traces of whatever poison was used in Samantha Inkler's stomach, but then again, all the cakes and pies she ate, including mine, will be mixed in with the blackcurrant pie. I suppose Mavis Poole could have taken the pie home and disposed of it easily enough, with her living so close by, even though she denies it. And whoever decided on using the pie as a murder weapon knew full well Linda Phelps wouldn't eat it because of her blackcurrant allergy, so they were definitely targeting Samantha Inkler, said Sally. Mavis Poole seems the most likely suspect to me, especially as she said Samantha Inkler was going to get her just desserts just before she ate her pie. Now we know her own house was going to be affected by the housing development. It's a pretty strong motive if you ask me. And why else bake a blackcurrant pie? Asked Tara. I don't like the woman. She was pointing the finger in every direction except her own. She was trying to implicate Susan Smythe just before Samantha Inkler was poisoned by telling us she'd taken books out the library last week about poisonous plants and herbs, said Sally. She did. And she also tried to frame me for both murders too, with very poor motives for me doing so, I might add. But, you know, as a librarian, she has access to those same books and more, said Tara. Good point, said Nancy. First thing in the morning, I'm going round to see Mavis Poole and I'll be getting some answers out of her one way or another, said Tara. What about Adam Pinder? Why would she kill him? Asked Sally. That's a good question. Maybe his murder was a distraction, so she could add the poison to the pie when no one was looking. Or maybe there's two murderers. We have a clue for Adam Pinder's murder, though. This note, she said, pulling the pink, crumpled note out of her jeans pocket. Luckily, it had been protected from the worst of the weather and was only slightly damp. Tara, you took evidence from a crime scene? Asked Nancy, wondering how she would explain it to her detective husband. The wind could have blown it into the nearest puddle, and a stampede of hysterical villagers would have trampled it into obscurity. I saved it, said Tara defensively. She read the note out to them again. We don't know who left this note, and we don't know if he did actually meet them. I think it's safe to assume he wasn't too happy about meeting whoever it was, though, said Tara, smoothing the creased paper thoughtfully. Why's that? Asked Nancy, wondering if Tara had gained psychic powers. Because he'd screwed it up and thrown it on the floor of the caravan. I think the woman he had an affair with wrote the note, and I think if we find out who that was, we'll have the identity of his killer. Maybe she killed him because he finished the affair. Jealousy is always a powerful motive for murder. We'll have to ask Susan Smythe then. She disappeared just before Samantha Inkler was poisoned, said Molly. She was very drunk, said Sally. I doubt she could have killed a man in that state. She could barely walk. Was she, though? Or was she only acting? Did she kill Adam Pinder? She was angry enough to slap him, and she didn't seem upset he was dead either. Mind you, no one there seemed upset over it, or even shocked for that matter. Did any of you see anyone in the cake tent that shouldn't have been there? Asked Molly. We took Susan Smythe inside the tent, but we thought it was the right thing to do with her being so drunk and upset and alone, said Sally. Susan Smythe had an entry in the cake competition, so she had a reason to be there, remember? But she did go all weird, talking about poisons and how it only takes a few drops of a potent poison to make someone drop dead, said Molly. That's right, she did. She gave me the creeps talking about poison like that, said Sally, remembering the conversation all too well. Okay, so she's a suspect in both murders, but we don't know what her motive would be for Samantha Inkler's murder, said Tara, writing it down and turning onto a fresh page. And her boots were full of mud too. The actual part of the field the fete was on wasn't that muddy to start with. It was the torrential rain and the mass stampede that made it muddy. The corner where your car is parked is muddy. Suede boots aren't exactly the best choice if you're anywhere near mud. They're as useful as a pair of socks. She must have gone up that end of the field for a reason, said Sally. Trust me, trainers aren't a good choice either, said Tara ruefully. You know, Mavis Poole said she saw Samantha Inkler follow Adam Pinder into the caravan, threatening him with the environmental health. Now, I heard that, but I didn't see her go into the caravan. So Mavis Poole has no alibi for Adam Pinder's murder, because she evidently was in the immediate vicinity about the same time of his murder. She must have been to have seen them both go into the caravan, if she saw them both go inside, that is. What I can't understand is why no one saw or heard a struggle. He could easily have fought a woman off. If Samantha Inkler had killed Adam Pinder, she'd have chipped her nail varnish, I'm sure, and her nail varnish was pristine, said Tara. At last, someone we can cross off the suspect list, even if she did get murdered herself later on, said Nancy. I saw Simon Salter coming out of the cake tent just before Samantha Inkler was poisoned. He's got a temper on him, we know that. He had a row with Adam Pinder and Samantha Inkler, and he made threats to both of them too. He's also got a strong motive. He doesn't want to lose the field and have to sell his horses. He had the opportunity to carry out both murders because he was at the scenes of both murders at about the right time. He's no alibi either. He's another we'll have to question tomorrow, although we'll have to be careful how we put things to him. I think the best plan is to get him to pull my car out of the mud first. Then, if we need to make a quick getaway, we can, said Tara. What about the police? Ah, I knew there was something. Whilst you were in the shower, Dennis rang. He said they'd be round tonight to take our full statements. They groaned. There was nothing worse when you wanted to relax in the evening after a stressful day than knowing at any minute someone would be knocking on the door. It was even worse when you knew they were there to take lengthy statements and go over the same tedious questions for hours on end.